Things really aren't looking great for Thor 5 after what happened with Thor Love and Thunder. That movie stirred up a lot of drama, and honestly, Marvel probably realizes they can't afford to repeat those same mistakes. I mean, who thought it was a good idea to kill off a villain as interesting as Gorr the God Butcher so early? He had the potential to be a much bigger threat in the MCU, but it happened, and now they've got to work with what's left. Because of that misstep, Thor 5 seriously needs a shift in tone. We've actually seen a darker version of Thor before, in Thor the Dark World. While that film isn't exactly a fan favorite, it did try to lean into the serious side of Thor's character. The upcoming movie could revisit that darker tone, but this time, it's not just about elves and ancient relics. This time, we might be dealing with Null, the god of the symbiotes, and things could get seriously heavy. Now, Marvel's done a solid job laying the groundwork for this storyline without spelling it all out. We already know from the comics that Gorr used a sword called All-Black Necrosword to kill gods. That weapon? It was created by Null. So if Gorr existed in the MCU and he had that sword, then logically Null could exist too. And that sets us up perfectly for a darker, more cosmic storyline rooted in the King in Black comic event. Even though Marvel hasn't come out and said, "Hey, Null is coming," a bunch of things in the MCU point in that direction. Sony, on the other hand, has confirmed that Null is going to be the big villain in Venom: The Last Dance. So clearly, the studios know Null's a big deal, and they're not ignoring him. What makes Null such a compelling villain is that he isn't just another cosmic threat. He's ancient, powerful, and driven by a very personal grudge against the Celestials, the same beings we saw more of in Eternals. See, back in the day, Null lived in total darkness in a void called the Abyss. He was perfectly content in that emptiness until the Celestials came along and started creating life all over the universe. That didn't sit well with him. He saw their actions as a violation of the darkness he called home, so he lashed out and started a war against them. This grudge lasted millions of years. In the King in Black comics, Null tries to wipe out the Celestials and take back the universe, spreading darkness across the galaxy. With Eternals already laying down the foundation for the Celestials in the MCU, and given how much history Null has with them in the comics, it wouldn't be hard to imagine him showing up soon. Especially if the Celestials become vulnerable or start losing power in future films. Null could easily take that as his moment to strike. And then there's Gorr's sword. In Thor Love and Thunder, the Necrosword played a key role, but Marvel didn't explain where it came from. They didn't say it was created by Null, but they didn't say it wasn't either. So that origin is still wide open, and it's a perfect opportunity to tie Null into the MCU even more. Another major clue? The Venom symbiote. In the post-credit scene of Spider-Man No Way Home, when Venom is sent back to his own universe, a little piece of the symbiote gets left behind in the MCU. That's huge, because Null created the symbiotes in the comics. So if that piece is still hanging around Earth 616, that could eventually be what draws Null into this universe. Plus, Spider-Man and Venom are super important in the King in Black event. Venom, in particular, is key to the storyline because of his deep connection to the symbiotes. He even ends up absorbing a huge amount of power in order to take on Null directly. So if the MCU ever wants to adapt that arc, the seeds are already planted. And let's not forget the Ebony Blade. That sword was introduced in Eternals, and it plays a big role in defeating Null in the comics. The Ebony Blade has special properties. It's made from a mysterious meteorite and enchanted in a way that lets it cut through basically anything. Even someone as powerful as Null isn't immune to it. That makes the sword kind of a secret weapon. So, if Null ever shows up on Earth in the MCU, you can bet he'll be looking for the Ebony Blade. In fact, in the comics, he went out of his way to get his hands on it. That could easily translate into a movie plot where Dane Whitman, aka the Black Knight, becomes a target. That alone could kick off a King in Black style storyline for Thor 5 or a future crossover event. Now, over on the Sony side of things, Venom: The Last Dance is coming out in October 2024, and it's been confirmed that Null will be the main villain. That film is supposed to wrap up the Venom trilogy, so it makes sense they'd bring in the ultimate boss. He created the symbiotes after all, and having him appear completes Venom's arc in a big way. But that doesn't mean Null will be defeated there. He's such a powerful villain that it would almost be a waste to get rid of him after one movie. So if Sony plays their cards right, he could stick around and possibly cross over into the MCU. Because Null is a multiversal being in the comics, he's not locked into one universe. That means he could make the jump from Sony's universe into the MCU, especially with all the multiverse stuff Marvel's been doing lately. The piece of the symbiote in No Way Home plus the Ebony Blade are strong enough reasons for Null to head to Earth 616 in a future film. It would also be a smart move to tie the Sony and Marvel universes closer together. Having Null appear in both could help bridge the gap, wrap up some open storylines, and open doors for new ones. It just makes sense, especially with the MCU diving so deep into the multiverse in phases 5 and 6. Null's rise in popularity has been wild, especially since he only made his full comic debut in 2018. The fact that he's already showing up in a major movie proves just how impactful he's been. And if Marvel really wants to go big in Phase 7 and beyond, he's the kind of villain who could carry an entire saga, the same way Thanos did. In the King in Black comics, Null doesn't just threaten Earth, he practically conquers it. His army of symbiote dragons floods the planet, infecting heroes and turning them into his minions. Even the Avengers struggle to fight back. At one point, Iron Man has to take control of a dead Celestial just to stand a chance. It's that level of chaos. One big mystery in the early parts of the event was, where's Thor? Turns out he was trapped in a pocket dimension created by Odin. But in King in Black number 3, he finally returns, and not a moment too soon. Thor goes head-to-head with Null, and it's brutal. He even knocks Null's jaw off with Mjolnir, but it still isn't enough. Null stabs him straight through the chest with All-Black, telling him it's an honor to be killed by the sword's creator. But of course, Thor survives, thanks to some help from Iron Man and the Silver Surfer. Still, it shows just how powerful Null really is. Even Thor can barely stand up to him. So where does that leave Thor 5? Well, honestly, I don't think Marvel needs to completely reinvent Thor to make it work. They just need to bring back the version of Thor that balanced humor and seriousness, like we saw in Infinity War. That movie showed that Thor could be funny and dramatic without going over the top like Love and Thunder did. While Thor: The Dark World isn't the best MCU movie, I actually think it gave us one of the best portrayals of Thor. He was noble, serious, and still had some dry humor. That version evolved beautifully in Infinity War, where the Russo brothers kept the comedic bits but also let Thor show real pain and depth. His big "Bring me Thanos" moment? Pure cinematic gold. If Thor 5 brings that version of the character back and gives him a worthy villain like Null, it could be the perfect comeback. After all these years of experimenting with tone, the MCU finally has the chance to get Thor just right. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.